Israel's an incredibly complicated country, and years of living with the Israel-Palestinian conflict has affected both sides. In order to truly understand the situation, we need to look at what's going on with both people groups, which means you might want to start working on your Arabic. Dov Lieber is the Arab Affairs correspondent for the Times of Israel, and he's here to tell us about one of his latest projects. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, you're the Arab Affairs correspondent. What does that mean? What kind of stories do you cover?
Well, I cover a vast range of topics, including to Arabs who live in Israel, the religious side, the cultural side, the political side, the Palestinians, what's happening in the PA, what's happening in Gaza, and the entire Arab world. It's a lot of responsibility,
Sure.
but it's also, I'm glad to have this responsibility because for me it's the most important thing, one of the most important things an Israeli journalist can be doing is telling the Arab side of the story.
Sure, it's a side that doesn't get covered quite as much, I think. So you were just recently in Calandia. Can you tell us what's going on there, why you were there?
Well, the Calandia crossing, it's the largest foot and vehicle crossing from the West Bank into Israel. It's mostly between Palestinians who live in the Ramallah area who work in Jerusalem. They put it up around 2002, which was during the height of the Second Intifada.
Sure.
And that was at a time when we had suicide bombings nearly every day in the country. And that was part of the whole defense system to, prevent suicide attacks. Today, you still have up to 10,000 people come through this crossing every day, but it's become infamous for terrible imagery and footage of what goes on at the crossing itself. The actual infrastructure, it's very grim and depressing. The laborers are meant to kind of shuffle through metal fences that look a lot like what cattle would be shuttled through. And it's very difficult to see. Some days, it's fine. You show up to the checkpoint, to the crossing, and you cross in 10 minutes. Other days, it could take 2 hours, and the workers never know what's going to happen when they get there.
So you have to get there early and just sort of hope for the best.
Yeah.
So what is Israel doing to change this, or are they doing something to change it?
For a long time, Israel hasn't done much to change it. The police say they have made improvements in the procedure and that things go smoothly, but when you speak to the laborers themselves, they say nothing's really changed since the beginning. And Channel 2, Israel's Channel 2 did a series feature article just 2 weeks ago that showed that things really hadn't changed, that showed it was chaos at 4 or 5 in the morning. Hundreds of people trying to rush through to get to work on time. But these days, Israel is trying to lower tensions between Palestinians and Israelis, and one of the ways to do that is to bring in more Palestinians. And in order to bring more Palestinian workers into Israel, the crossings need to work better.
Sure. So what exactly, when you were there, did you see things that Israel was specifically doing to make that an easier process now? How has it changed even in the last 2 weeks since that report came out?
Nothing changed, really. The problem with this crossing, specifically Calandia, there are 4 groups who operate the crossing. The police, the military police, the civil administration, which is part military and part of the Ministry of Defense, and then there is private security contractors themselves. And within this web of who's running what, it's hard to find accountability. When I visited there, it's a small example, but it's a very poignant example. When I visited in the waiting area, which is sometimes hundreds of people, thousands of people, women and children, disabled, the water fountains don't work. There was one bathroom with one toilet, and it was pretty grim. I don't think most people would ever step foot in such a bathroom. And when I was there, that's the only thing they have. Nobody takes responsibility and no accountability. And when you ask the spokespeople for each branch who's guarding or in charge of the bureaucracy, they say it's somebody else's responsibility.
Well, it sounds like we have a lot to work on. I want to take it kind of in a broader look now. You said Israel is trying to bring in more Palestinian workers to defuse the situation. How do you think that will help? Obviously, it's getting more Palestinians into Israel, but how will that change the situation from what it is right now?
I'll talk about something one of the workers told me when I was there on Tuesday, and something that Israel's defense officials really believe in, and that is right now in the West Bank and in Gaza, the high unemployment is incredibly high. And when you can't work, you can't get married. And when you can't get married, there's despair. Despair really fills in. And he says, and the Israeli military officials and like what this laborer told me, if they can just come to Israel and work and make a decent living and go back home, they're probably not going to do anything. And the last 7-month wave of violence showed us that out of the many hundreds of Palestinians who carried out attacks or tried to carry out attacks, only a few of them were actually workers in Israel. And the truth is that of the people who have permits to work in Israel, there are around 50,000. In reality, more than 100,000 Palestinians work in Israel every day. Sure. They come over to Israel illegally. They don't do anything. They don't make a security threat, and they go back home. It almost makes you wonder, what's the crossing for? If more people are crossing illegally into Israel, what's it all for?
Definitely. Well, it sounds like it's a project that they're still working on and something that we need to continue with. Thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you.